Is that truly a way for us to elevate and operate, or is it just a lost cause and that's just information that we have to debate with?
What we have to do, black people, the thing that we haven't done is get a code, meaning a way to deal and react with each other like other dominant societies do. When white people come around, they get on code with each other, even if they don't know each other.
Get on code.
They get on code, no matter where they're from. You can get a white man from England and take him to Australia. They'll get on code with each other once they get around us.
Right.
So they understand to have codes with each other is how they maintain dominance, how they maintain their power. We, on the other hand, we get off code with each other, meaning a lot of times we get around each other and we do things to undermine each other.
Right.
We get around each other and start trying to show out in front of white people and try to pander to them, and we don't look out for each other.
Right.
That's not having a code.
So I want to stop it right there. Code of conduct, a way that a group of people can operate to be able to build power, build themselves up, empower themselves, be able to operate as a unit, to be able to not allow outside forces to penetrate what they have built and be able to break it down. So one of the most interesting things that he said to me was toward the end when he was talking about when white people come together, white people are on code. When black people get together, and especially when we get together around white people, or when we are around white people, we get off code, i.e. code switching is another thing that we do. For me, a code of conduct is needed. A code of conduct is something that all groups of people should have. It's clear that we don't have a code of conduct. It's clear we've never got together and put one together. I mean, it's just that simple. That's how we know we don't have one, because we never got together to put one together. Now, do you have factions of people like us who may have created codes of conduct? Yes, that happens. But as a collective, we've never got together and put together a code of conduct, never agreed on anything. So the way we operate, like we've said in the past multiple times, is more from an individualistic standpoint. And what we've learned thus far from these breakdowns, when you're operating as an individual, you're operating as a powerless person. And so our codes help to bond us and bind us together. We have a point of reference to go from. We're going to move forward for a certain objective, and as long as we stick to this code, we'll be able to reach our objective, or it will increase our chances of reaching our objective rather than decreasing our chances of reaching our objective, because we're operating in a more individualistic sense. So the codes, to me, codes bind people together. Codes give you a frame of reference, a purpose, a meaning for your operations, rather than just something just like rules to live by or bind people. It gives you a sense of purpose. What y'all think?
Go ahead, PC.
Well, I mean, the simplest way I could see it is, when you talk about codes, you're really talking about culture. And when you identify with culture is the insulation. Culture is something that if you feed into it, it insulates you. And it's more so a dual, you win twice. You know what I'm saying? You pour into it, and as you pour into it, it protects you. And once you have this rhythm, sort of like reinforcing connective energy of connecting the culture to the code and back and vice versa, what you then have is, a order of operation that not only protects you, but it empowers you. And that code of conduct is, when you speak about codes, those are things that I think about when you talk about being codified. Understanding that there's certain ways we move, certain things we accept, certain standards we have. There's a level of integrity to it. The dignity of that particular concept has to be reinforced. And in a nutshell, by building it, it protects you. So I think I went back to that. I know Patrick gave a great example of that in the Independence Day Project when asked about what culture is. So, I mean, I'm going to keep mine short. That's pretty much what I got.
I'm gonna come at it from a different perspective, because I agree with PC. Code and culture, they're in a lot of ways they can be interchangeable when used in conversation. But so I want to position it not as saying we don't have a code, but I'm gonna position it as saying we get on their code because we're part of their culture. When you get two white people together and then you introduce a black person into the mix, all three of them get on code. The white people are in a position of power. The black person is in a position of inferiority. And that happens no matter where you pull these people from in the world, because there's a global culture at play when you begin to talk about how race dynamics play out internationally. So, and obviously that's not true in every single instance of every single person, but generally speaking. So it's not that because the reason I'm positioning it this way is because if we just say we don't have a code, then the assumption is, well, if we make one, we fill the void. And that's not going to work.
Right.
You know, we've got to undo what's been done and then slide something else in there. So there's something already there. And that code, that culture is theirs. And the reason they don't, the reason we have to come together to create a code in a way that white people didn't necessarily have to do is because when white people established dominance, they established it and they established a position of power.
Right.
People from a position of power, the way things just naturally work, the inertia of the situation is that they stay in power. Things continue the way they've been. So they can just flow with it and it'll happen. We're coming into a situation of inferiority or a lack of power. We have to undo what's been done. So we have to and we've had this conversation before, Joe. We have to make a concerted effort to do things different. Everything we do has to be thought out and methodical, because we're dealing with the inertia of development that's continuing. And in order to stop that, you got to do something different. And in order to do something different, you got to actually think about what the fuck you doing. Excuse my language. We passed the 2-minute mark, right?
Well, Tariq gonna cuss anyway, so.
Oh, well, so that's so I want us to come at it. Everybody that's thinking about this stuff, like, because when we just say we don't have this, we don't have that, I get it, I understand it, but I've been in enough conversations now where I understand that when that's the frame of reference, people stop paying attention to the fact that there is already something occupying that space, and you got to get that out of there first. So we do have a code. It's just not one that's beneficial for us. The same conversation PC and I used to have about culture years and years back. We do have these things. They just aren't working to our benefit right now, and that is the problem.
Hey, dog. So that's right though. I feel you, because we basically saying the same thing. We didn't develop it. We didn't develop anything of ourselves. And but one of the things you said is very, very, very important though. When you are the winner, you don't have to develop a code. People gonna fall in place because people who benefit from the dominance want to maintain their benefits. So they're gonna fall in place. You're gonna have a couple of scragglers, but for the most part, people are gonna fall in place because they want to maintain the benefits that they get from the dominance. So yeah, those who are not in power, we got to get our shit together.
Right. And let's take that one step further, right? Not only do those that are benefiting want to continue to benefit, but those that see other people benefiting,
they want
to try to mimic that so that they could benefit too. And that's what we got going. That's the code. Well, and the only reason I mention this is because I was in a discussion a couple years back talking about codes. It was after we came up with the codes, because for y'all that don't know, we came up with the codes a while back. The question was centered around that aspect of, well, why is it that we have to do this and they don't, and why is it that we have to move this way, and why, like those types of questions were being asked. So I'm trying to kind of answer those questions in case somebody else thinks of it
Well,
while they're watching the
well,
joint.
if you ask a question like that, then I go back to what Neely Fuller said. Everything you learn is just confusing you. They're winning. They're winning. If I could kick your ass and you can't kick my ass, you can't move the same way I move. It's just that simple. It's not like people. Let's stop making this hard. All right, God damn it. If I can kick your ass and you can't kick my ass, you can't move how I move.
Well, the interesting part about that is understanding, and Patrick, y'all brought up the power dynamic, and when power only respects power,
right?
That's one aspect of it. Like, you can beg and plead, you can protest all you want, but you're not moving anything unless you have power, and either to inflict harm, or at least make the other person or the other entity cautious of what you can do to their power or their stature. So we see a lot of the ongoings, and specifically when you talk about the code, and I agree with you, Patrick, we become submissive to the dominant power. And that's why when you have, and we can go from individuals to group settings, but when you have white folk in the area, when they come to speak to you, they don't change the way they talk. They don't speak with a harder accent. They don't talk from their chest or their belly. They're nasally like they always are.
Hi.
But when we get around them, we perk up. We do what's called code switching. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that part really needs to be examined further, because it's a lot that contributes to the way we think. And I think, even when you go to epigenetics and understand how much have to go into the restructuring of our process, there's a purge that needs to take place, a cleansing that needs to take place before we can really even get into being codified. Because for all intended purposes, there's a little bit of white supremacists in all of us.
And y'all see, this is what Professor just said is the reason why y'all need to go back and watch every breakdown we did, because all of them are connected. Everything he just said is connecting all of the breakdowns that we've done. So go watch them. It's a playlist. Go watch them. So let's continue, though.
Code of conduct, meaning, are we going to do things that's going to empower?
But why don't we have a code? I mean, when we come from, even think like the Igbo and the different tribal concepts, that's all code.
It is. But the problem is when they start bringing us to the Western Hemisphere, they learn from Haiti, because when they start bringing people to Haiti, they were bringing over too many people from the same tribes. They were on code. They knew how to communicate with each other, and they start beating the hell out of the French. Right. So they start learning from that mistake. So they said, we're going to have to start getting a tribe from here, a tribe from there. They can't communicate with each other. Let's remove these drums. Remember, they took all those drums from some of those islands.
Force of communication.
Exactly. Because you can tell somebody, hey, boom, kill that motherfucker at 8 o'clock. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So they started mixing up all these different tribes, so we couldn't communicate. We didn't have the same codes. We didn't have the same tribal customs, and that was a problem there. And they made sure we didn't get on code.
Oh, yeah.
So here, we need to have, I know PC has had conversations about Haiti on his channels before. We need to have real conversations about what happened in Haiti.
You finna make some people mad, but go ahead. I like it.
Well,
he said it.
I'm not gonna go in, but I'm gonna say this, right? Haiti was still an example of Black people not being on code. Now, did they get on code enough to put up resistance? Yes, they did. But the spark to that resistance was white people mistreating the mulattoes that were in a position of power over Black people there. So that when they started mistreating the mulattoes, correct me if I'm wrong, PC or Joe, when they started mistreating the mulattoes, they said, "Oh no, we not. Y'all ain't finna treat us like them." And they galvanized the community, and that started an issue. But all the way up until the white people basically started showing their ass to the people that they had propped up, they were still out of code. And then what happened as soon as the resistance was fired up and they saw some progress, they fell back off code. So like
we're pissed off.
I'm not like, so yes, there's a lot to celebrate about what happened in Haiti, particularly for those people there. But if us black folk here in America are really going to try to learn from that, we got to have an honest conversation about what happened in Haiti, why it happened, and what happened after we stopped telling the story, because we love to stop telling the story way too
after
early.
the victory.
What happened next? So the Haiti thing is just every time I hear that, it's always being held up. And there's so much left out of the examples when people hold it up.
But I just want to say this real quick. But to me, that's a point that has to be brought up, especially in this conversation, because it goes with this conversation talking about being on code and us being able to understand what being on code truly means from the core. It means us sticking together and riding together and have this sense of unity by this code that we're bonded by through the whole ordeal from beginning to end. We're on code. We're sticking with each other. We're by each other. We're riding together. We're gonna die together. All these things, we're doing it together as a unit. And
bad boys for life. Sorry, go ahead.
There you go. But any chink in the armor shows you that the code ain't solid though.
Well, one of the things that and we'll go back to Haiti for a second, because Cecilia Fatima, she was a mulatto, and she was the main, one of the main driving forces behind organization in the fields. And I think one of the things that was what Tariq talked about, it wasn't necessarily accurate, and I could be wrong, but there were a lot of different African tribes.
Yes,
in Haiti at that time, before it was called Haiti, it was a lot of different African tribes. And in fact, the tribes between Jamaica and Haiti and Puerto Rico, I mean, not tribes, but the passage, they were all, coming off the same ships at that particular time. So, in Cuba as well. So that's not necessarily the code. The code is the fact that the Africans had developed prior to, they had already developed common languages and common culture all across, they spread from Eastern Africa to Western Africa. So no matter who you picked up, there were still commonalities, because all those tribes still had to work with one another, barter with one another, trade. Even when they were at war, they still had to have diplomats. So, when you understand that they still had a code. And also the drums wasn't just about sending messages. The drums also was about a spiritual cause, a spiritual purpose, a spiritual answering. So there was a spiritual reckoning that came with the drums. So those are different things. And I think one of the things that we can learn, and I think that's a good point you bring up, Patrick. We could learn from the things that worked and the things that didn't work. And when we do an analysis of it all, but the thing is, if you create power, then you have to understand who your enemy is. And see, it wasn't just the French. It wasn't the Spanish. It wasn't just the British. It was everybody white. And when Napoleon went back to France, he stated they got on code, because he said this is not about France being the kings or leaders of Rome. This is more so about establishing white supremacy over those darkies from Africa.